Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamericamedia.com. Wonderful to be here. We're in our 24th year of being on this network. I've been on many other networks, but this one I have stayed with all these years. This is the program that shows you how to turn your problems into solutions and your obstacles into opportunities and make your dreams come true. And today we are talking about having empathy, having compassion, and I have a globally recognized authority with me today. His name is Dr. D. Ivan Young. Dr. D. Ivan Young is a globally recognized authority in human behavior, leadership psychology, and emotional mastery. He is renowned for helping high achievers transform complexity into clarity. His credentials reflect not only the elite professional achievement, but also a science-backed, evidence-based approach that produces measurable, lasting change. He holds prestigious degrees as a certified master coach, and he's a keynote speaker, consultant, and mentor. And he empowers individuals and organizations to lead with clarity, courage, and compassion. And his TED Talks have garnered over 5 million views. And he's worked with many large companies like CNN, MSNBC, Forbes, many others. And his best-selling book is Another Chance. He has another book upcoming called Break Up, Don't Break Down. And today we're talking about his book, which is Leading from the Heart. Leading from the Heart. Welcome, Dr. D. Ivan Young.
Oh, I was wondering what the heck we're talking about. I'm like, what is this? I'm so glad to
All
be here.
right.
Thank you.
Well, you've written quite a bit. Why do you think, I could answer this question.
Mhm.
Why do you think people and the world in general need this book now more than ever?
Oh, wow. If we look at what's going on, especially in the United States, there's a lot of messaging out there. There's messaging that is polarizing people. I've had people in my office that have lost friends. I've had couples that have literally filed for divorce
Mm.
over things that we we can control if we are proactive in voting and in just standing up for what is right, what is human. But even when that is attempted, we live in a world now that we're being manipulated by algorithms on social media. Depending on what you consume, conservative or liberal television and radio. No, there's very little truth out there, and there's a whole lot of I want to grab your attention. There's a whole lot of we need to sell commercials, and we want to make sure that we are more sensational than the other channel you're watching. So I think it's time for us to put some guardrails on because the things that we allow in our heads, oh my God, that's dangerous. So it's about time we take control over our thoughts.
Yeah. How do you help people do that through your book and through your talks? Because there's so much out there. Um, how can you help with all of these increased reports?
That's a very good question, Patricia. One of the things that I would say is be compassionate. The center theme and leading from the heart is about self-compassion and self-empathy. If you don't have that and give that to you, how can you externalize that to someone else, right? That is the first step. The second step is let's stop waiting to talk and start listening.
Yeah. I think that's very true. I think we all think we listen, Yvonne. I think we feel that we listen, but are we really listening, or are we just waiting so that we can get our turn to say what we want to say?
And that's dangerous. One of the books that I have that's required reading for any CEO I work with or any client, be it on the clinical side or cognitive side, is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg.
Mm.
Well, often there's an internal turmoil. We're at war within ourselves, right? Because most of us are walking around triggered and don't even know it. We're in fight or flight mode, which means the amygdala and the limbic system have been hijacked. And the
Right.
part of us that actually is relational, that's introspective, that is compassionate is in the prefrontal cortex, right? When we think about that, here's my example, Patricia. You got this big bulky security guard. This guy grabs the CEO, and I'm going to call that the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's relational and that comes up with new ideas, that wants information. So the big security guard, your limbic system, your amygdala, grabs him or her and takes them into this room where nothing can get in, nothing get out. And the security guard is thinking, well, I'm doing you a favor. I'm protecting you from
Mm.
harm.
Mm.
Well, the truth is, the security guard isn't capable of making the decisions that you need to make,
Mhm.
that you probably should make. The
Mhm.
security guard has one thing in his view. Is there a threat present?
Mhm.
Now, years ago, centuries ago, if there was a growl in the night, you had a reason to be scared. Something in the bushes, you don't know what it is. You have a reason to be hijacked. But in 2026, it's the name on a text message on your phone. It's that email. You go to the mail, you got too much month left at the end of your money, and the slip went from white to yellow to pink.
Mm.
That's how we're being triggered. Now, that's just the surface stuff. I'm not even talking about the trauma you may have going on in your own life, a divorce. Maybe you have an aging parent or a spouse that, they're draining you because you love them, but because, there is nobody else to help. Or maybe it's just a reoccurring thought where you were betrayed, abandoned, or you let you down. So
Right.
most people are walking around in fight or flight mode, and you would think you could probably say, hey, you all right? I love you, or whatever. They can't even hear you because until the physiology is addressed, meaning the fight or flight, where the security guard can be told, "Look, I don't need you to protect me. I'm good. That sound you heard was nothing. It was this, or it was something. But
Mm.
let's focus on what we need." Until you make the security guard take a seat and release the part of you that can engage in a meaningful way, you're not going to make the decisions you need to make. You're not going to be available for someone to connect with you at a substantive level, and that's a problem.
Right. And the problem is the awareness, as you said, the awareness that something else is going on and that we don't have to react in that way. So that's a whole big lesson because there are people that if they heard what you just said, they wouldn't even it would go right over their head because it wouldn't be about them, it would be about you. It would
Yeah.
be about blaming you for whatever happens. It's not about the way they think. And I think that's something that, people have to want to make that change, Yvonne, in order to do it. And I know you talk about this. Now, you had your own journey through retromolar cancer. And let's talk about how that impacted the writing of your book. And
Oh, yeah.
also, right, also, addressing that idea that people many times don't want to look at themselves in that way. They don't
Yeah.
even see it. The first thing they do is say, it's not me, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Referencing that journey, I I remember going through that season. I decided, I'm on TV a lot, got a lot of stuff going on. Let me go and just make sure that I'm looking my best, and I'm going to a dentist and getting ready to have an implant. Well, the dentist examined me. He said, Doc, do you smoke or drink? I said, I haven't done that in 20 some years. What are you talking about? He said, well, I see some banding. Well, long story short, that banding, I went to MD Anderson, nothing. Went back for a follow-up, nothing. So we resumed our pursuit of trying to, make sure that my appearance is elevated. And the doc that's a friend of mine, he said, I don't like what I see. He said, I want to biopsy this. Well, biopsy came back, it was cancer. Now, here's the story. I was, I had a large social media following. Well, large for what we do. And I would be in the park or some environment in nature. I would give these messages and these little talks. Typically, there'd be a few thousand people listening. By the end of the month, that accumulates to about 500,000, 600,000 people. And I remember this particular day. I was doing my positive message and I was even talking about the cancer. And I said, I don't know why God gave this to me, but maybe it's just for you to witness what faith looks like and to see that anything is possible as long as you believe, that kind of talk. And then it's always a part of my identity and my brand is everything is working for your good if you choose to see it that way and use it. Well, right when I got through with that, Patricia, I just started crying. Now, I'm out in the middle in this beautiful nature scene with a little stream, that I could see. And I'm wondering, why in the hell am I crying? Well, I realized why I was crying. I was crying because I was scared. I had never had a surgery. Cancer? Hell no, never had that. And I heard this voice tell me it's okay to be scared. Well, then I got into the process of, when you get cancer, you get poked everywhere, x-rayed everywhere. I mean, and I'm going through this. And I started learning that, talking to myself, saying it's okay to be scared. And then I shared my feelings with my interdisciplinary care team at MD Anderson, and they were wonderful. They reflected back, hey, man, we got you. And, the way you're handling this. And I was like, well, listen what they're telling me. They're telling me the way I'm handling it. How come I'm not telling me the way I'm handling it is good? Why they're being empathetic with me? And I started realizing something, Patricia. Empathy is not some benevolent, pious trait. It's a skill.
Mhm.
It can be weaponized and for the good and for the bad. So I started weaponizing my empathy toward myself, using it to protect and elevate me, and for me to accept the season I'm in, because long as I'm resistant to it, I'm not going to get what I'm supposed to from it. And that's how that experience catalyzed me to write Leading from the Heart, but it also saved my life.
Right. And so what I hear you saying is that you took that experience, right? And in the
Hmm.
beginning, you were not kind to yourself. You were not empathetic to yourself. But as you went along and realized, well, if I'm not this to myself, I'm not going to heal as well. And how can I really preach something that I'm not doing for myself? And then
Yes.
once you did that, things
Mhm.
changed in your life. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. You're so accurate because one of the things that I love that you said is that, you know, it was a shift. It was a
Right.
shift in awareness, and it was a roadmap for me where I quickly realized well, let me say this. My doctoral thesis was on the placebo effect, right? And I know for a fact that in clinical trials, we can give someone a sugar pill or some
Right.
saline, and it's a sham. It's not going to do anything. But for whatever reason, about three to sometimes 5, even 10% of people go into full remission. They no longer have the symptoms. And I'm talking about these were chronic diseases or terminal illnesses. And I wondered, how does that happen? Well, I started connecting dots. We get what we expect. we get what we believe, not what, it's one thing, what you know is powerful, right? You can know for a fact, but do you believe it? And when you believe it, it takes knowing to another level.
Right.
So I started believing, I started talking to my body. I remember right after the surgery, it's 12 and a half hours, I'm in surgery.
Wow.
The guy walks in my room, the nurse, and he says, "Man, it's so zen in here." And I was listening to meditation, and he saw my lips moving because obviously I had a tracheotomy, so the trach is still in me. And, I just had the bottom right bone removed from my face, my mandible. So, but he saw my lips moving. And I said, "I'm praying." And he said, "Wow, well, 12 hours later, I was up walking down the hall after having the fibula removed from my right leg, as well as muscle tissue harvested because they rebuilt all of this."
Wow.
And the guy was saying, "What is it?" And I said, "Well, I'm nurturing and loving me."
Yeah. 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 I think the challenge comes when we believe something,
Hmm.
Yvonne, but we don't see it. So we might say, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm headed, I see it and I believe it, but you're not seeing it in front of you. You're
Yeah.
trying, you're moving toward it. For example, in your case, it might be, I see myself healed, but you're not
Hmm.
healed yet. Or
Hmm.
in my case, it might be, I see this goal that I have that I really want to achieve, but it seems slow to me. It's not moving as fast. The question is, how do you maintain that strong belief when you're not seeing it happen yet?
Yeah, you would ask me that question on today, right? Uh, I'll tell you that story later. But the truth is this,
Oh, you
it
know
is
what? You know what? You're going to have to wait because
happening.
I'm being told I've got 30 seconds left. So hold that, and I'm going to ask you that question again when we come back because I
Sounds
think it's really important. I think people lose hope when they believe something when they don't see it on their timeline. So, my guest is Dr. D. Yvonne Young, who is a globally recognized authority in human behavior, leadership psychology, and emotional mastery. And he's renowned for helping high achievers transform complexity into, kind of simple terms, right? And his new book is called Leading from the Heart. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamericamedia.com, and we will be right back. Hi, everyone, and we are back. We are back with Dr. D. Yvonne Young, who is a globally recognized authority in human behavior, leadership psychology, emotional mastery, and he's renowned for helping high achievers transform complexity into clarity. And he's worked with Fortune 100 executives. He's been on international media platforms, including CNN, MSNBC, Forbes, The European, Essence Magazine, and many others. In addition to his coaching work and the book that we are talking about today, which is Leading from the Heart, he is also the author of Another Chance, as well as the upcoming Break Up, Don't Break Down. All right, welcome, Yvonne. So let's answer the question that I started to ask you at the end. And that is, if you really believe in something, and I'm asking you this also for me, I know I'm not alone, but this has happened for me. It's you really believe in this thing, whatever it is. You believed you would get better from cancer. I believe I'm going to go to the next step in my career. And so I can see it. But on a daily basis, it's not happening for me as fast or in the way that I would like it to be right now. That doesn't mean it won't happen. How do you keep that hope going when it may be zigging and zagging, not exactly the way you had it in mind?
Let's start with a simple premise. The sum is no greater than the individual parts, right? And what I mean by that when we apply it to manifestation is that everything matters. If we were to get what we want when we want it, maybe we might mess it up. Maybe we don't have the capacity, or maybe we're ready, but the people that are going to be our partners and our team members aren't ready. So everything is epistemological, meaning one step at a time. When I looked at my situation, or even now, I'm a founder of a tech company. So when I look at these things, here's my vision. Here's the arduous manifestation pursuit, right? And sometimes you feel almost hopeless. Sometimes you just want to throw in the towel and say to hell with it. But here's the greater truth. The greater truth is it's a reason why that a caterpillar goes into a cocoon. It's evolution, right? It's a reason why the tadpole is not a frog yet. We have to go through seasons where we increase our capacity, where we move from manifestation as the goal to understanding the meaning as the goal. I've read somewhere it says, don't get so caught up in the gift, you forget about the giver. So there are times as we evolve that every day there is something in terms of an added value that attaches to the journey that
Mhm.
prepares us to handle what it is we have a
Yeah.
vision for, that makes it meaningful. And I'll say this and shut up. I don't want to go too long, but I just want you to picture this. Your headlights only shine 200 feet at a time. They do not illuminate your path for your 100-mile journey. They just go 200 feet at a time.
Mm,
Well, there's a reason for that, right? You need to pay attention to what's in front of you that day.
yeah, that's
You
a
need to
great
pay
analogy.
attention to what's in front of you that moment and make sure that you are maximizing the moment. And if you maximize the moment, it's kind of like that the old adage, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? How do you get to the summit of a mountain one step at a time? If you perfect taking care of the moment and being intentional, being present, and in this day, in this moment, am I fully available? Am I utilizing this? Well, like in weightlifting, is the reason why it's called resistance training. Every rep makes you stronger. Every day, your meaning and goes from I want to look good to hell, I want to live long and be able to take myself to the toilet and back without help at 85 or 90. And that's the meaning. So when you attach meaning to mission, that's when you get manifestation.
I want to share something that seems a little off the subject, but I think it really connects here. Because sometimes what happens is our own fears or perceptions get in the way. So I'm going to give you an example. This just happened to me, and I'd love to get your feedback. So I was writing to someone and corresponding, and needed a response. And I wrote this a couple of things, and I would get a response to the first part, but the question about let's get together and have a meeting was ignored twice. So
Mhm.
by the third time, I was already all my fear was coming in. Why don't they want to meet with me? I'm doing the work. What's happening? And I was really getting distraught over this. And so after the second time, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to leave it alone. I've got to deal with my own anxiety because this doesn't seem real to me because I'm doing the work and things seem to be fine. And I had someone who's very close to me say to me, give it time, give it another day, maybe they'll get back to you. And I said, well, I don't think so. But a day later, they did get back to me. And the reason was there was a death in the family, they're overloaded with work, which are all the things you would expect. But
Mhm.
I let my brain go into this dark place.
Mhm.
And in a way, that was a lesson for me, right? That was a lesson to say, Patricia, you knew that it probably was nothing, but you immediately went into this, oh, I'm rejected and the person doesn't want to talk. I mean, I just went because of my own triggers from the past. So
Mhm.
I'd love you to address that, Yvonne, because I know if it happens to me, I'm not alone. I
Yeah.
know other people do that too. We take something and yes, there may be a reason, but we blow it up more.
I do this for a living, and I'm an expert in behavioral neuroscience. It happens to me too, right?
Yeah.
It happens to you if you're human.
Yeah.
I was talking about trauma early on. I said, you got this big security guard, that's the limbic system, the amygdala and all these parts of your brain, the default mode network, what have you. Well, the greater truth is we're traumatized. We're
Hmm.
triggered.
Hmm.
We have a relationship. And don't get mad, don't judge yourself because here's why it's important. Your brain is doing what it's supposed to do, protect you. It is trying to avoid suffering, loss, harm. So when it sees a cue in the environment that triggers you and you find yourself being debilitated, having your emotions run rampant,
Yes.
ruminating,
Yes.
what the first thing you do is be kind to yourself. Say, you know what? I'm frustrated. I'm scared. Then get that pen out. I tell people, get the pen or use your computer and write down, okay, well, why am I frustrated? What am I afraid of? Well, I'm afraid that these people don't see my value. I'm afraid that they're blowing me off. And then this is how you move from that fight or flight and activate the prefrontal cortex. With an open-ended question, you ask yourself, okay, so what else could be? What else could this be?
Hmm.
And one of the things you said earlier is, well, I'm talking to someone who's very busy. Maybe they're just busy.
Hmm.
Or, stuff happens.
Hmm.
So maybe stuff is happening. Or did I really ask, or did I communicate my need
Hmm.
in a way that the person understood why whatever I'm asking for is important to me
Hmm.
or relevant to me? And as we move things from the being reactive, we can now become proactive. I use in the book the omniscient self and the obnoxious self, right? The obnoxious self is always looking at, waiting on the shoe to drop, what might happen. It's attached to avoiding pain. Like, you remember the last time you tried it, it failed. You remember when you did that, everybody laughed at you. But see, the omniscient self takes into consideration, are you that little girl or that little boy that your uncle or the whoever touched? Are you
Hmm.
much wiser and much stronger
Hmm.
now? Are you the version of you that didn't know the value of a dollar, that didn't understand that you need to get a feasibility study and a business plan? Are you still that person or have you evolved? So we need to honor first the fear, the pain, the trauma. And after we do, we need to make sense of it and ask ourselves, okay, is this true? Is it, and it may be a fact, But what is the greater truth, right? It's a fact they didn't answer your two emails. But what could the greater truth be? The greater truth could be, I'm talking to one of the busiest people in this industry.
Yeah.
It could be, well, they're my age. My mother's health isn't doing well. She just passed. Maybe they're dealing with an aging parent, or, I just went through a divorce. I got an issue with my kid. Maybe they're having marital issues. So let me give them patience. Let me give them grace. And you will find that when you do, that's going to make a huge difference. Now, Patricia, can I give you a cheat code? May I give you a cheat code?
Sure.
Okay, here's the cheat code. Most of us don't know how to communicate. Again, we wait to talk. So the next time you are in a conversation with somebody, don't wait to talk, listen. And when they share information with you, acknowledge what you heard. That's called a reflection when we do it clinically. But you can just say, I heard you say, you're from Ohio or you're from New England. Tell me about New England.
Mhm.
What is it that you love about New England? And see, when you start talking to people rather than waiting to talk, and you demonstrate that, I'm here right now. What matters to you matters to me. What's meaningful to you is meaningful to me. What is scaring the hell out of you, I've been scared too. But keep the conversation where the other person feels seen, where they feel safe and secure. And what's going to happen is you're going to open up to another level of intimacy, even in business.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's a very good point. It really is. It's very much, as you said, about a lot of it is kind of what you said in the beginning, Yvonne, which is kind of training your brain when it starts to get into fight and flight to reason, use that prefrontal cortex to reason and say, now, wait a minute. I know what I'm feeling here, but let's really analyze this and look at it and ask all the questions. And I really think that's what you're saying. All right,
Yeah.
we got a couple minutes to break. So let's see. Let's ask something about also about your book. But let's talk about the difference between empathy and sympathy.
I'll give you a quick answer since we have a couple of minutes. Empathy and sympathy are cousins, but they're kind of like they sound alike. They even look alike, but they're not the same person, right? So when you sympathize with somebody, that's like you watching them drown or try to attempt something, and you sit over and you go, "Oh, wow, man, you poor thing. Who I feel so bad for you." Well, that isn't going to help them. And be honest, that could come across as condescending, even dismissive, right? But empathy is you see somebody struggling in the water. You see them, they can't swim. That means you're willing to get wet. Empathy means that, I'm not going to drown with you, but I'm going to come where you are. And if I have to get wet, I will get wet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in as a stabilizing force. And once you're stable, then we're going to try to go to safety together. And that's what empathy is about, is meeting people where they are, seeing and taking serious what you are witnessing, and then to whatever you have to the offer, to the extent possible, making that available and sharing it with that person to help them either move from that state or to be in it and know that they're not alone.
Mm, it's great and so true. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the definition of the science of connection. We'll also talk about gratitude. We hear a lot about gratitude, but how does that fit in with understanding and showing empathy? And then we'll also talk about how can we start using these ideas in our daily lives right away, for the simple things that happen, right? And so before we go to break, Yvonne, how do people find your book?
Oh, it's real simple. Leading from the heart. You can just type that in. It is well branded. And then if you just type in Dr. space D, like the fourth letter in the alphabet, then Yvonne. Yvonne is spelled just like you'd spell Ivan. So Dr. D, Yvonne Young, just type it into Google and put books behind it, and you won't have any problem finding any of my content.
All right, great. Thank you. All right. So when we come back, we'll talk more about Dr. Yvonne Young's book, Leading from the Heart, The Essential Guide to Self-Empathy and Self-Compassion, right? And what Dr. Yvonne Young does in this book is he really elevates the concept of empathy behind that corporate buzzword. And he looks at it as an essential part of being human, right? And how we can use it to navigate, how we can use it to help us with our own pain and trauma and loss and regret and failure and love. So you're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Show right here on voiceamericamedia.com. And we'll be back with Dr. D. Yvonne Young right after the break. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and we are back. We are back with Dr. D. Yvonne Young, who is the author of Leading from the Heart, The Essential Guide to Self-Empathy and Self-Compassion. And that's what we've been talking about. How can you be more empathetic? How can you be compassionate to others, but also to yourself, which sometimes we are not as much as we could. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Let's talk about kind of the definition of the science of connection. Is there a definition in here?
Oh, wow. Yes. Uh, Relatability, conversation, emotional intelligence, all those things can be measured. And anything that we can measure, we can quantify, right? So what we start looking at is what are the dynamics that facilitate connection? Well, there are a few. One is intention. I think it's the most powerful. When we intend to connect with someone, that means that your agenda has to take a back seat. I'm not
Right.
saying you abandon your agenda, but what I am saying is that it shifts from being self-centered to being collaborative. And when you intend to interact with somebody and create a win-win situation, when you intend to honor someone else's perspective, well, there's a thing called a mirror neuron. People are going to honor your perspective, right? When you intend to put the security guard away and let someone know that, hey, you can put your gun up, you can put your shield down. You're safe here. I see you, I hear you, and I care about you. The other part of this is making sure that this isn't performative. Are you sincere? Do you really give a damn, right? A good example today, I was leaving the gym. I saw a guy that, you know how you get your little gym acquaintances and friends, what have you. And he saw me. He said, "Hey, Doc," he said, "Man, I haven't seen you." I told him, I said, "Well, I had a little surgery, had to get cleared." He said, "Yeah, man, I lost my mother." Now, I had two choices. I could keep talking about my surgery. Well, I'm sorry you lost your mother. Well, I had that would have been a lack of emotional intelligence to the extreme, right? But I could have also just been patronizing. Oh, you lost your mom. Man, well, how long did she live? Well, at least you had her. That would be patronizing. It would
Mhm.
also be, I think, rude, if I'm to be honest. But see, I've lost a mother.
Mm.
So when he said that, everything else shut down.
Mm.
My goal at that point was to pay attention and bring my energy to where his energy was. At that point, I wanted him to feel seen. I wanted him to feel like he wasn't alone and that I actually did care. And so the first steps in this, and this is, I'm giving you a real life example, but this is how you do it. First thing is I matched his energy. Hey, man, hey, slow down. Whoa. And I said, "Did you say you just lost your mom?" And he said, "Yeah." And then my next question is, "How are you?"
Mm.
Because that let him know, okay, he hears me. He actually gives a damn. He actually is concerned. And then I made a statement. I said, "Well, I've lost my mother, but I know that's different for everybody. Tell me what your experience is like right now." And by that time, he started sharing his experience. And then the last thing I said before we walked off, I said, "Man, I got to run. I got a couple of interviews today, but do you mind if I just give you a hug?"
Mm.
And I said, "Look, I love you, bro.
Mm.
If you need me, I got you."
Mm.
Now, somebody would look at that and be like, "Ah, that's so sweet." Well, it was very sincere because I do care about this guy and I care about what he was going through. But in conversation, using that as the template, we should engage people to the point where we're not so focused on trying to get them to write a check, to invest in your business, to buy your product, or whatever other agenda you may have, that we realize the fruit of connection is rooted in trust,
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
compassion. And when you do that, I don't care what you're dealing with. It could be a conversation where you are on total opposite ends of the table. You can come together and be on one accord.
Yeah. I mean, powerful, powerful. Yeah. Yeah, I'll share something that is not that, but it's similar when you said, selling services and products. We don't realize that the way we deal with people will really predict a future relationship. And so what I mean by that, it's a quick story, but I went into a store yesterday with my wonderful guy, and he needed a pair of running shoes. So I said, "Go back to this store because I've been there." And he went in, and the person who took care of him was very mediocre. Didn't measure his feet. Just it was. If I hadn't said, "How about another size?" he would have walked out without a pair of shoes. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. But I had remembered the guy that had waited on me last year, who was incredible. And he was there. And I said, "Do you remember me? Do you remember?" And he said, "I do remember you." I said, "You?" I said, "I can't believe it because you were so, I drove you crazy. I said, and you were so patient with me. I couldn't find what I wanted. I didn't like the styles. And I even went home with shoes, brought them back. He was as kind the next day as the day before. We finally got a pair of shoes that I love that I still wear. I said, you were so kind to me. I said, and I remember you so well. And I love those shoes. And he said, oh, well, here's my card. But I remembered him. And I guess the point I'm making is the other guy really didn't care. When I said to him, do you want to measure his foot? He went, oh, okay. And when I said, well, how about the next half size up? Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like I was directing this. I'm glad I was there. The other guy would have already done all of that. Now, I know this sounds like a small thing, but if I ever need shoes again, I would go back to that guy
And,
and I
and
would go back to that store.
and it wasn't about the shoes, was it? The
No, he was
shoes
very
went out.
kind to
Oh,
me. I was really having trouble. I couldn't find what I wanted.
yeah.
Everything looked very clunky and very chunky, and I just couldn't find what I liked.
But Patricia,
And
here's what you're saying, and I apologize for interrupting you.
no, go right ahead.
What you're saying is the shoes were incidental. He made me feel seen. He made me feel safe. He made me feel special.
He
He
did.
gave me a sense of security, right? And you said that it was to the point that when I came back the next day, I got validation that that was authentic because he treated me the exact same way.
I know.
Yeah.
That
And,
was
and a
amazing.
year later, listen how you're talking about it, because what I'm observing in your conversation is the pitch, the tone, and inflection in your voice, the warmth, the fact that this was not a transactional, but a transformational experience. And here's what you're not saying. Oh my God, talking about your significant other, I wish this man had waited on you instead. Right. And,
Well,
and,
yes,
and
that's
that,
what I do wish.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
But I
so
didn't see, he didn't come out till the end after the other guy was already waiting on him.
yeah, yeah, but I want your audience to hear this. Here's a guy that spent a measurable amount of time, meaning the salesman that was not emotionally intelligent. He spent all this time with you, right then, right there. But something that happened a year ago was more impactful than something that's happening right now. Now,
Interesting.
just think about that, folks. So if you're in sales, if you're the CEO of a company, if you're trying to get some venture capital, whatever it is you're doing, that is the power of communicating when you use weaponized empathy appropriately, when you're fully present and when you're intentional. That is something that stays with someone typically for the rest of their lives.
Mhm.
And there's so much evidence. We don't have time to
Yeah.
back this up, but I'll just give you one little antidote for this. NASA has an abundance of candidates to go on space programs from all walks of life. And one of the greatest criteria, and I can't think of the psychologist's name, it skips me right now, but one of the things I was listening to him in a lecture, and he said, uh, the biggest thing we look for in an astronaut is not their technical expertise. We look to see how they relate to others, because when you get in that spaceship or up on Skylab or whatever, that's a very small, confined space. And in that little small, confined space, you have a whole lot of room for ignorant to grow. Now, he didn't say that, that's Dr. Young, but a whole lot of room for ambivalence, a whole lot of room for disconnect. We look for people who know how to relate to other people that do that very well, not good, not transactionally, not socially, authentically. And that's the cut. So if NASA recognizes that, it would probably be a good idea for those of us on Earth to do that too.
Well, it's interesting because when you watch the shuttle recently and we watch the news, there was a lot of conversation about that. There was a lot of conversation about how they got along together, how they helped each other, how in space they worked together as a team. They talked a lot about that. They talked more about that than they talked about the skills because you have to have those skills.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they really did. They talked about how they watched each other's back, how they were like family. I remember that vividly. I mean, it was just a couple weeks ago.
yeah, yeah. Collaboration is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. What would you like to close our interview with? Dr.
Uh,
D. Yvonne Young, what would you like to tell our listeners? What's your closing thoughts?
you're here for a reason. The fact that you tuned into this program right now, of all the things that you probably were going to do, especially those of you who happened upon it because, you're channel surfing or a friend said, hey, you ought to listen to this, pay particular attention to the content that you heard today because it is for you. There are no accidents in the life of a wise man. Not only a fool goes through life thinking stuff just happens, but those of us who are thinking at let's say, a more significant level, those of us who are living life on purpose, if you listen to this content today, I ask that you apply it. Definitely go pick up a copy of Leading from the Heart and definitely keep listening to Patricia's show because both of Patricia and I have one goal in mind, and that's for you to lead a profoundly extraordinary life, taking control one moment at a time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Really, really appreciate you being on the program. And people can find your book, as you said, I think online or
Yeah,
at a bookstore.
yeah, you can go at any place that sells books, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, but we're available everywhere. Again, just type in "Leading from the Heart," Dr. D. Yvonne Young, and it's the D is an initial, Yvonne spelled just like Ivan, and you can just put that in Google or Yahoo or what Claude, Gemini, whatever, you can find me.
Can people write to you on the website? Is there a place where they could write to you?
If follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I respond. So if you send me a message on LinkedIn, trust that I will respond to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yvonne. Really very inspirational and enlightening, and really enjoyed this interview. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Stay on the line for a minute. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamericamedia.com. To find me, if you'd like to get a copy of my newsletter, which I send out the first day of every month, which shares all these amazing guests, find me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com, and there's a place to sign up on my website, patriciaraskin.com. Also, if you'd like to if you really have a positive message and you'd like to share more of it, and you hear them on this program, and you'd like to do your own podcast series, I can help you do that. I've interviewed over 6,000 people in my career, and I'd love to help you put your program together. So contact me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. Remember, stay healthy, stay happy, get the support you need, and know you can make your dreams come true. Until next time, I'm Patricia Raskin. Bye for now.